Okay, so here is problem 3. Some groups needed this. So here it is. Consider the function that's graphed here from -2 to +2. The following diagram shows the graph. Write down the values of f of 0. So 0 here means that x is equal to 0. So we want to find, that's 0. We want to find what is the y value when x is 0. So here x is 0. Let's go up until we meet the graph right there. So then f of 0 is equal to 4, because there is a point at 0, 4. See, that's our x value, that's our y value. So to write it correctly, f of 0 is equal to 4. All right, the next question, f of -1, so that means the inverse function is equal to, the inverse function of 1. So that basically means the y is 1, and I need to find what the x is. Because when you have the inverse function, the x's and the y's change. So on the inverse function, this is no longer the x, this would actually be the y from this function. So if this is y, then I need to figure out, well, what is x? So when y is 1, well, here is 1 on the y-axis. So where does that hit the graph? It hits it here, and it hits it here. So there's actually 2 answers. So when we want to find the inverse function of 1, that means y is 1, so we're looking for x. So there's actually 2 answers. It could be -1 or it could be 1. So another way of writing that, f -1 of 1 is equal to -1 or 1. Okay, so write down the range of the inverse function. So remember, we're swapping x and y values. So that means we're swapping domain and range. Domain is the x values, range is the y values. So if I want the y values of the inverse function, those are the same as the x values. That would be the same as the x values of the actual function. So what is my domain then? This is my domain. So my answer would be the same as what was given to me up here. Okay, the range of the inverse function is just going to be the same as the domain of the given function. But since it says range, I'm actually going to try to change that to a y, because if I am talking about range, I have to say it's the y values are going to be between -2 and 2. All right, now we're going to sketch the inverse function. So remember, we're just switching the x and y values. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take some critical points off of here, and I am going to figure out what those are, and then I'm going to swap them. So this first point, so say I made an xy table, this point is -2, -1. The next point is -1, 1. The next point up here is 0, 4. This point is 1, 1. And the last point is 2, 2. So now I'm going to swap those. So this would be for f of x. This is going to be f, the inverse function. So I'm going to swap them. So it's this one, when I swap it, it's -1, -2, 1, -1, 4, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 2. And now I'm going to go ahead and graph that. So -1, -2. So this point is now here. 1, -1. So that point is now there. 4 and 0. So that point is now here. 1, 1 ends up being in the same place, and 2, 2 ends up being in the same place. So to draw that, see how it's like a mirror image? And then this has a nice curve to it, and a nice curve back down to there, and then I'm going to go like that. So there it is. So notice the function and its inverse are a reflection across each other, but where's the mirror surface? The mirror is going right through here, y equals x. Y equals x is the mirror surface. So if I were to fold my paper, this would match exactly on top of that. Okay, on the grid sketch, okay, I just did that. All right, on this grid, we're going to sketch this function. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and describe it, I think. So I always start inside my parentheses, Anything inside the parentheses is has a horizontal effect. So this is flip. That negative means I'm flipping it. Flip horizontally. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Then, using my order of operations, I'm going to multiply. So that's outside the parentheses, so it's vertical. So I have a vertical stretch by a factor of 2. And then I'm going to move the whole thing down. So then I'm going to have a vertical shift down 3 units. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'd like to do it point by point. So this point, I'm going to flip horizontally. Right now my horizontal value is at -2, so I'm going to flip it over to +2. Now I'm going to stretch it vertically by a factor of 2. All right, so how far from the x-axis is it? It's 1 unit, so 1 times 2 is 2, so it's going to be twice as far away from the x-axis. And then vertical shift down by 3 units, so I'm going to move it down 3. 1, 2, 3, so it ends up here. So let me get rid of that intermediate spot. All right, next point. This is a good point. So again, flip it horizontally. So I'm going to move it. See how it's 1 away from the y-axis, so I'm going to move it 1 the other direction. Vertical stretch by a factor of 2, so it's 1 unit away from the x-axis, so instead of being 1 unit high, let's make it 2 units high, because 1 times 2 is 2. And then vertical shift down by 3, so move it down 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next point, this one right here. Flip horizontally, well, that takes me nowhere, because I'm already on the y-axis. Vertical stretch, it's at 4, so times that by 2, it puts me to 8, and then move it down 3. 1, 2, 3. There it is. And then this point, flip it horizontally, so it's going to go onto this side. Vertical stretch by 2, it's 1 up, so I'm going to make it 2 up, and then move it down 3. 1, 2, 3. And the last point, horizontal, flips over here. Vertical shift by a factor of 2, it's up 2, so 2 times 2 is 4, and then move it down 3. 1, 2, 3. And there it is. So that connects with a straight line. This curves, and straight. I should have used another color. A little bit hard to see, but hopefully I talked you through it okay. Some people like to do it with a table. They like to take the original points, which I had up here. So like -2, -1, -1, 1, 0, 4, 1, 1, 2, 2. And they like to perform these operations on the numbers. So flip horizontally. So horizontally, that is my x numbers. So instead of -2, it's going to become +2. Vertical, that affects my y values. So I'm going to do a vertical stretch by a factor of 2. So -1 times 2 is -2. And then subtract 3 from that. So -2 minus 3 would be -5. So, and you can see 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I accomplished the same thing. Okay, so this point here, -1, flip horizontally. That means I'm going to change the sign. So instead of -1, it's +1. And then the y value, it's at 1. I'm going to multiply it by 2 to make it twice as high. 1 times 2 is 2. And then minus 3 from that. So 2 minus 3 is -1. And so let's see, did that work? So 1, -1, yep, there it is. All right, so I could keep going. So you could do it with a table. I like to do it by just moving the dots around on the graph myself, but you can certainly do the same thing with a table. All right, that was problem 3. Hope you liked it.